around some of these issues. I bring them to the market and try to find a nexus between them, why we need to make hay while the sun shines, even though it's raining outside as we speak, figuratively speaking. So welcome everyone. We want to do this as business-like as possible so that we can make the best of time. While some folks may want to return to their offices or their desks to clean up their tables before the end of the official business day of the day. So let me just ask the team, my technical team at the back, if you have the national anthem, I will take that as the responsible corporate citizen. The Carry Asset Management Group respects and duly recognizes the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we have the national anthem. I would want us to quickly take that, and then we'll have a few introductions, then we'll go to the few opening remarks to get us on the way for this event.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign fatherland.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Thank you very much. On behalf of Carry Asset Management, I formally welcome all of us to this quarterly economic discuss to discuss the first half of the year and set the agenda for the second quarter, which is already underway. We're about into the third week of the month of July already, so we're well into the start of the second half of the year. I want to say a very big thank you to the Carry Asset Management team, but let me recognize very specially Mr. Johnson Chukwu, who is the Group Managing Director for Carry Asset Management Group. Please give me a round of applause. I also want to say thank you to all our participants and panelists who had kindly agreed to be here. Dr. Dakuku Peterside, who is a public policy expert and former Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Association, NIMASA. Thank you very much for accepting to be here. Mr. Amaju Melvin Pinnick, former President of the Nigerian Football Federation, NFF, and FIFA Council member. Thank you very much for coming as well. Thank you so much. We appreciate also Mr. Chinwe Egwim, who is an economist and thought leader in the Nigerian financial industry. Thank you very much also, Mr. Egwim, for coming. And of course, Professor Bungo Adi, who is a professor of economics at the Lagos Business School. We appreciate your acceptance to also be part of this event. Let me also say a very big thank you to the Managing Director of Carry Treasurers Limited, Mr. Charles Sonny. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Thank you. We'll make this, as I said, very quick so that we can get with the key and very important aspect of this, which is to share our thoughts around the subject matter that Carry Asset had kindly and thoughtfully put together. And that has to do with Nigeria's consecutive World Cup misses in worsening insecurity, the economic performance nexus, and try to draw lessons for the markets and the economy and for businesses from those two important headline issues or pillars, the World Cup misses and worsening insecurity. To formally welcome us to this event for today, please welcome to the podium the Managing Director of the Carry Treasurers Limited, Mr. Charles Sonny. Give a round of applause to give us a very brief welcome, words of welcome. Formally welcome everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed clients, members of the board, colleagues, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to warmly welcome you to another edition of the Cowrie Quarterly Economic Discourse. On behalf of the board, management, and staff of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, I sincerely thank you for taking the time to join us for what promises to be a timely and thought-provoking conversation. At Cowrie, we believe that sustainable economic growth is driven not only by sound investment decisions, but also by informed dialogue around the issues shaping our nation. This belief is what continues to inspire the Cowrie Quarterly Economic Discourse, a platform where business leaders, policymakers, economists, and industry experts come together to exchange ideas and offer practical solutions to the challenge facing our own economy. Today's theme, Nigeria's consecutive World Cup misses and worsening insecurity, the economic performance nexus, may appear unconventional at first glance, and indeed it is. However, when examined closely, it raises important questions about national competitiveness, security, governance, investors' confidence, youth development, and the broader economic consequences of these interconnected issues. The inability of a nation to consistently compete on the global sporting stage and the persistence of insecurity both have far-reaching implications beyond their immediate sectors. They influence tourism, foreign investment, business confidence, productivity, national morale, and ultimately economic performance. These are conversations that deserve serious attention. And we are delighted to convene such a distinguished panel to examine them from multiple perspectives. We are truly honored to have with us an exceptional panel of discussants whose expertise spans across economics, public policy, governance, and sports administration. I am confident that the insights shared today will enrich our understanding of the issues and provide valuable perspectives for policymakers, businesses, investors, and other wider engaged public practitioners. To our clients, thank you for your continued trust and confidence in the Cowrie brand. Your partnership remains the foundation of our sources, and we remain committed to delivering not only superior investment solutions, but also thought leadership that contributes meaningfully to additional development in our nation. I also express our appreciation to our discussants today, moderator, media partners, and everyone who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make today's events possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage us all to participate actively in today's discussions, ask questions, share perspectives, and engage openly as we collectively explore ideas that can help shape a more secure, competitive, and prosperous Nigeria. Once again, thank you for being here. It is now my pleasure to declare the Cowrie Quarterly Economic Discourse officially open. Thank you, and I wish you a productive and insightful session.
Thank you. Another round of applause for the Managing Director of Cowrie Treasuries Limited for raising the curtain, Mr. Chasoni. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, how you sort of guided us towards the key points of what our conversation will be today, especially what the panelists would discuss and again showing where we should focus on and why this is needed for investors in the market. And because that's the marketplace is where everything do come together. Sometimes we may not really realize it. But again, it all comes down to the marketplace, whether it is Rwanda Tourism signing millions of dollars deal with Aston Villa or so, and so it's all come down to the market, confidence in the economy, confidence in the business sector, getting every sector to move. And sporting industry or football in Nigeria should actually be, I have been expecting the first football club side to be listed on the market and carry asset being the one to midwife the first, maybe from today, that will happen very soon with Oga himself, have the first listed football club side for the Premier League. Maybe the Nigerian Premier League should just come, and then we can do business. But how far have we gone so far? Please put your hands together for Mr. Johnson Chukwu, the Group Managing Director of Carry Asset Management Limited, to give us his thoughts for this lead presentation before we go to the panel. Please, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, you have the podium. Thank you. A round of applause again, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Worsening. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, let me profoundly thank my brother-in-law, Amaji Pinnick, former president of the Nigerian Football Federation. He just came back from US, where he was part of the organizing committee of the last World Cup. So we have one of the most valuable resource persons here. The other speakers are making their way to this venue. Ms. Chinwe Gwim told me she had an engagement, but she will be here in the next couple of minutes. Professor Bongo fleeing from Abuja is heading towards this place. And Dr. Dakuku Peter Said will join us virtually. He's already connected. He's already joined us online. So he'll be speaking from the US. So why did we think of this interesting topic? Nigeria's consecutive World Cup misses and worsening economic, worsening insecurity. Like Bosin said, it looks like a double whammy. Where you're talking of, many of us, in fact, what happened immediately after the World Cup, I realized the whole place was too dull. I don't know whether it happened to any other person. When the World Cup ended, I felt I was missing something. Because every day you looked up to something. And then, because they were playing it in the evening, like 8 p.m., so you get home, you make sure you get home by 8 or before 8, and then you are watching match at 10, and then another match is starting by 11. And then if you have the stamina, you can watch another one by 1 a.m. But even if you don't watch the late ones, when you wake up in the morning, you tune to know what transpires. With the apps that you have on your phone now, you can actually check the outcome of the matches, the one you didn't watch. And then you can see the replay or the highlights. So it then means that there was something about the World Cup that appealed to almost everybody. But we were not there. But Nigeria is the case of a country that was fully representing the World Cup, but not as a nation. Because we're the only country that played in 9 nations, that represented 9 nations. The only country. So if they have to give an award for a country with the most dispersed players, Nigeria will be the winner. So we'll be talking about why did that happen. So let's look at what we want to cover, what we want to speak today. The key question and headline framing today's discussion. So we need to set the stage, and let me see if I can take it from here, because as you're getting old, you realize that you can't see from a distance. So, and then we'll be talking about Nigeria's economic review, the first half of 2026. We talk about the global economic review. We look at the World Cup question. Why were we not there? Why were we not there in 2022? Are we going to be there in 2030? And We look at the impact of sports on the GDP and look at the insecurity and economic performance. Is there any nexus between insecurity and youth unemployment? And then we look at the outlook and recommendations. Then I'm going to make this very brief because I have an eminent panel. So the intention is to have a very short presentation and then let the people who are most experienced speak and interrogate this question subject better. Is Nigeria's FIFA World Cup miss an indication of loss of competitiveness? Are we losing competitiveness as a country? Is Nigeria's security indication indicative that our youth population is now a disadvantage? A country with 242 million people. Are we mining the benefits of the youths, or are we dissipating the values of the youth and converting it into negatives? Why is Nigeria failing in areas it has comparative advantage? Dr. Dago Peterson wrote an article on Nigeria's miss of the World Cup last week. And Patrick Lumumba took him up on some of the issues. I'm sure you're going to talk about that because he shared this in communication interface with me. And the question is that it is not about every country going to the World Cup, because one of the issues that came up was, why is India not in the World Cup? Why is China not in the World Cup? Are they not big economies? But the issue is that when you fail in the area of comparative advantage, it becomes a problem. I don't know whether I am communicating with anybody. And that's where the problem is. Not just because we're not in the World Cup, but we have the talents, we have the natural gift to be in the World Cup and to win the World Cup. And that's why Nigeria has represented 9 countries, including captaining a nation to the World Cup. And then could economy be a factor? And that's where we are interested. What will be is economy the center of these problems we are dealing with? And we said there is a shared root system. Both sporting success and economic success rest on the same 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars are institutional quality, the quality of institutions you have, your human capital development, security, and infrastructure. We believe that development is not a happenstance. Countries that are successful in any field are deliberate in their preparation, deliberate in execution. Youth engagement is a swing factor. And when you talk of youth engagement, not just in sports, in education, in skill development, in technology. Skills are acquired at young age. In fact, in my quiet moment, I was thinking about life. I said, look, we can actually say that our life is in a trimester. The 15 years is your childhood age. It's where you need to develop your brain, your mental ability, your physical ability. In the next 25 years, trimester. So the next 25 years, when you are 26 to 50, you need to succeed. You need to prove yourself. So you take the first 25 years to develop, including going through your academic development processes. And then you take the next 25 years, your second trimester, to prove, to mature, to succeed. And then the next one is to maintain and prepare to meet your creator. So that's where the world is. So the challenge we have is that we're not engaging our youths in the first trimester of their lives. And that development will come, like I said, beyond sport development. Everything about development takes place in the first trimester of a human life. And when you miss it, you missed it. I remember immediately after the Liberian Civil War, and I went to Liberia, and I had a meeting with the then president, Mrs. Shelley. Yes. Yes. And she said to me and the people that we were meeting with that we lost a generation. I said, I don't understand. She said there's a generation of Liberians who didn't have an opportunity of going to school, who didn't have an opportunity of developing any competence, any skill, and they're now adults. And there's nothing you can do about them. that they will be a headache to the country until they die. So we said insecurity is now a binding constraint, because the challenge is that when it's a circuitous movement. You start from a failure to develop those skills that you should develop. They grow into adult life. They have no skill. And when they have no skill, they have to survive. They have to eat. And they don't have anything to eat, they eat you and I. And then we say institutions travel together. Countries with strong sports ecosystem also tend to show strong institutions and social cohesion. I was in Morocco in May. And I had been to Morocco some 20 years ago. And I was amazed at the level of development. And I asked myself, what is wrong with us? And I visited the World Cup stadium they are building. You know, they are one of the co-hosts of 2030 World Cup. And it is out of the world. And when somebody asks me that the North Africans look down on us, I say we're the one that look down on ourselves. Because if we do the right things, they will respect us. So, but let's start from looking at the global economic environment. The global economy pressured by the Middle East conflict. If you look at the graph there, you realize that the world economy is holding well, irrespective of the war between US and Iran. But then, the outlook is not strong. We are seeing the IMF and the World Bank review their expectation of the global economic growth from 3.4% to 3.1% at best. And they're saying in an adverse situation if it worsens. And I'm sure you are aware that there's already another conflict evolving there between Saudi Arabia and Yemen and Houthis. And that will create another corridor of conflict. And if that happens, then the impact will be more severe. But in effect, what we're saying is that despite the ability of the world economy to relatively maintain some level of stability, but the impact is already gradually sinking in. I'm sure you know that crude did over almost $100 last week. In fact, when I asked one of the major oil trading companies in the country about the crude price, they told me that the first 6 months of this year, Nigeria sold crude at $4 per barrel. And the last 3 months, that they sold at $107 per barrel. So the reality is that what you see as Brent price is far below the market price of countries that are not constrained by the Strait of Hormuz shipment bottleneck. So Nigeria happens to be one of them. And the impact of that is that the inflationary effect of that is affecting everybody in the world. Nigeria, for some reasons, which is what I just mentioned in passing, has enjoyed steady and moderating growth, steady but moderate growth, amid persistent price pressures. The challenge we're dealing with is the price pressure. So this gives you a pictorial display of our economic data or economic scorecard. GDP grew at 3.8%, 8.9% in first quarter of this year. Inflation has moderated at the end of month of June, in June to 15.91%. And why was that moderation? Because in the month of June, the US and Iran entered some level of agreement that temporarily halted the war. And we saw crude price trading down to about $70. And we saw adjustment in pump price across the country. I think there were about 3 or 4 adjustments in pump price by Dangote, and which had a direct impact on the pump price that you buy fuel. So that reflected in average prices. In fact, month-on-month inflation in the month of June was 1.66% against 1.75% in May. Then we have the CBN monetary policy met last 2 weeks and decided to hold rates at current levels. And their logic was that in as much as the inflationary pressure seemed to have relieved temporarily, the source of inflation had come back because the war had resumed by the time they were having that meeting. And we saw crude prices going up, and we expect that will reflect in month-on-month inflation and possibly year-on-year inflation. Average crude production in the first quarter of this year was 1.55 million barrels a day. And then in the first quarter of this year, Nigeria received capital importation of 10.37 billion dollars. But of that amount, only $135 million was foreign direct investment. Only 1.3% of total capital importation was foreign direct investment, was for long-term purposes. Then I'm going to talk about what these things mean, but on the positive, we also saw an expansion in the Purchasing Managers Index to 53.4%. Now, looking at inflation, looking at the GDP growth rate, you saw that the GDP growth rate has moderated from about 4.07% in the last quarter of last year to 3.89% in the first quarter of this year. But that was even an improvement from the 3.13% we saw in the first quarter of last year. GDP was average of 3.87% in the full year 2025. And like I said, we have enjoyed some tailwind effect in the current year. Remember that the first quarter GDP did not reflect much of crude prices. The war started on 28th of February. So the impact on the Nigerian economy was minimal, it was only for 1 month. So we're likely going to see a stronger impact of the higher crude prices in the second quarter of this year. These are just to show you a pictorial display, a pie chart of our major economic productive activities. Trade accounted for 17.89% of Nigeria GDP economic activities, total economic activities, followed by crop production. For agriculture, accounted about almost 24% of the GDP. But crop production alone, which is the major product we produce, and that's why it is weather related. So when the weather is good, you see crop production is good. And we saw crop production at 17.38%, followed by telecommunication, 9.18%, and then followed by financial institutions, and then crude oil production and gas, 3.92%, and on and on. So, but you also saw one of the interesting that happened in the economy in the past 3 years is that the real estate sector had become a major contributor to the GDP. The real estate sector had actually become the third largest contributor to the GDP at 13.1%. Then you look at the inflation I talked about. That inflation came to at a rate of 15.91% in the first quarter by the end of June this year. Prior June last year, it was 25.3%. And a lot of time when we talk about inflation, the average man on the street asks us, you say inflation is moderating, but prices are still going up. We're not saying this deflation. Deflation is when prices are coming down. We're saying this inflation, prices are going up at a slower rate. So it then means that what you bought 100 naira in June last year, you are buying it 115 naira 91 kobo today. But what happened the previous June was that what you bought 100 naira in June 2024, you bought it at 125 naira 3 kobo. So the first one was an increase of 25 naira if you are using 100 naira as a base. But remember that inflation is a compounding factor. So what that means is that the base after last year, if you started by November, if I started by June 2024, and you use a 100 naira base, by the time you got to June 2025, the base price was now 125 naira 90 kobo. So it's on that 125 naira 90 kobo that you had another increase of 15 naira 91 kobo, 15.91%. Which then means that if you compound the average prices, you are talking about 41% in the last 24 months. What that means is that your income must have increased by more than 41% for you to continue to consume what you consumed in June 2024. So that you understand that. Then we realize that of the inflationary pressure, food inflation is still very sticky. Food inflation came at a print of 17.52%, which then means that the average food prices on the average increased by 15.52% in the last 1 year. Let's look at your exchange rate, which is one of the positives. We've seen exchange rate moderate, and I said earlier that capital importation in the first quarter of this year was 10.3 billion. And then we also seen that crude production was about 1.55 million barrels, and prices have moved up. What that means is that you are seeing an improvement in your capital flow, in your foreign currency receipts. And when you are seeing an improvement in your foreign currency receipts, it boosts the capacity of your central bank to meet demand for forex. So we've seen instances where the demand for forex is below the supply for forex, and we've seen appreciation in the local currency. And we saw exchange rate moderate to 1,375 naira to $1 by the end of June. I know it had dropped to further to about 1,362 or 1,363 at the central bank level. Then you look at your external reserve. On the positive, the issue about increase in crude price, increase in crude production, and increase in capital importation all flush into your reserve. So we've seen the reserve climb to $51.5 billion. I understand that this reserve is the highest we've seen since January 2009. Then we look at crude prices. You can say I mentioned that earlier, that in June, crude prices dropped about $73 per barrel. But because the war resumed, it had averaged as high as $99 per barrel. Though today it moderated about $90 per barrel. But that is dated Brent. If you talk of spot Brent, it will be close to $120 per barrel. Like I said, I want to quickly run through this so that, because my brother said he's going to leave here by 5, so we'll be through before then. Then you look at capital importation report. I had talked about this earlier, and I said we received in the first quarter of this year $10.4 billion, of which only $135 million was capital importation, foreign direct investment. But if you compare this to what we received the entire 2025, 2025 we received only 23.2 billion. But the key thing about this is that we're seeing capital inflows, but it's just a large chunk of it is largely portfolio investment. It helps boost your reserve, it helps stabilize your exchange rate, but it is volatile. Now, the anchor of what we're discussing. This country. In fact, when I went to Morocco in May, at every point they see me, they ask me about which Nigerian player? No, among the current players. Osimhen. Everybody in Morocco was so fond of Osimhen. And they asked me, why are you not in the World Cup? But good thing, we have a magic picnic here. We tell us why we're not in the World Cup. So, but this is the record of the country. 1984, I think we went to quarterfinal. Is that correct? Or we got to knockout stages. 1998, 2002, by that time we had become a football powerhouse. We missed 2006, went 2010, 2014, 2018, and then we have had 2 consecutive misses. But like I said, we were a country, Nigeria in the FIFA World Cup, not as a nation, but as individual talents, individual players. So, if I ask you, like we ask in the Christian brethren, would anybody explain why you have a captain, you have defenders, you have everything that makes a team, all from one country, but playing for 9 different countries? Why couldn't these men form the national team? There are 16 of them. Why couldn't they form a national team? Michael Olise, Nani Madueke, Felix Mecha, Owen Goodman, Folarin Balogun. Folarin Balogun had a history in the World Cup. Because of him, Donald Trump called the FIFA president. He didn't call him. Well, it was a clip. So, but in the case, they canceled his World Cup. Canceled his red card or suspended it. And then you have David Alaba. He was the captain of Australia. You have Imo Okon. Despite the South Africans pursuing Nigerians, they had a Nigerian play for the national team. And the young man played very well. When I looked at him, I said, if I were him, I'll just walk out of this pitch so that they will know that they shouldn't pursue my brothers and sisters. You have Manuel Akanji. You have Bukayo Saka, my Arsenal player. Gone out for life. Well, look at me. Then you have all these wonderful players, but they were not there as players for Nigeria. But let me tell you that countries are very deliberate when it comes to World Cup. The World Cup ended when? 10 days ago. Countries are already preparing for 2030. Jurgen Klopp, Germany has engaged him to take over the leadership of the coaching of their country. Jorge Jesus is taking over in Portugal. Mark van Bovel taking over in Belgium. Diego Forlan, we know him, taking over Uruguayan team. Rafael Marquez, Mexico. Slavan Bilic, Croatia. We did not qualify for the World Cup, but we did not change our coach. Those that qualified did well, but they didn't win the World Cup. They're already rebuilding. So I would need to hear from these wonderful people while we're going to start rebuilding. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through. The interesting thing about Nigeria, which is what we're talking about, is that the demographics speak for us. Look at the demography. The age at which you catch them young is between the age of 0 and 14. 42% of Nigerians at that age. That's when you develop the talents. That's when you groom them. They play active football and become superstars at the age of 15 to 24. 19% of the population are in that age category. Some of them keep playing until they are 30. So you have another age bracket of 25 to 30 to 54, 31% are in that age bracket. And then those are our group age members. We only account for 4% of the Nigerian population. So if you look at this, you know we have the raw talent, but what are we doing with it? The football economy is huge. It has impact on your GDP, it has impact on employment. And the value chain of the football as a profession is huge. It has impact on media broadcasting. It has impact on advertising, Fly, Emirates, and all those things. Visit Rwanda. They're paying millions to be emblazoned in the jersey of major football teams. Hospitality. People will come, stay in a hotel, eat, betting, tourism, branding, merchandising, youth employment. These are in some of the value chain that draw from the football. And then what are the things that they signal? Your youth development, effectiveness, institutional competence, International brand perception, how your country is perceived. People celebrate Brazil. In fact, Brazil became global power through football. Talent management, how well are we managing talents in the country? And national morale or pride. Then we talk about insecurity, so I can quickly round up and yield the mic to the discussants. This is a history, trajectory of our evolution, starting from 2009, from Boko Haram to banditry, okay, to pipeline vandalism and oil theft, farmer-header conflict, kidnapping for ransom, and many of these things are still with us. So, when you are seeing this, and why is it important for us? Of course, these are just the demography of where it is high. Just to give you a guide, northeast, northwest, you have very high tendency for insecurity. North central, you have elevated cases. North, southeast, and south are moderate, and southwest is low. The economic cost of insecurity. People spend a lot on infrastructure and necessary. I was saying with a vehicle dealer today, and he was talking about a bulletproof vehicle. And I said to him, do people drive bulletproof vehicles in Lagos? He said yes, that somebody just bought two from him, and the person said he was driving his wife to the airport. They came on holidays in Nigeria, and they were driving to the airport, and when they got to shoot, somebody was knocking at their door. And so that the wife freaked out. And the wife said she's not coming back to Nigeria again. So he had to buy two bulletproof vehicles. I said, what are we going to do with that? I asked him how much. Each of them is more than 400 million. That's idle asset. Issue of industrial infrastructure in the northeast. We've had instances where masts were destroyed. Reduced productivity. Those who are in the IDP camp do not produce anything. Brain drain. A lot of people left because they said they can't live with content with this security situation. And then you have loss of investment. Who will invest in Zamfara? Who will invest in Meduguri? And some of those places? Who even invest today in Plateau? And then you have issue of skill development. Children who should be in school are not in school because they are afraid of being kidnapped or being killed. So, sectors bearing the heaviest burden of this: agriculture, reduced farming activities, increased food inflation, then disrupted supply chain, oil and gas, persistent crude oil theft, pipelines, and then lower output, foreign direct investment. I had mentioned that extensively, that we saw very low real sector capital importation into the economy. So connecting the dots. The reason why you will not do well in your area of core competence. You know, we talk about comparative advantage, and I'm sure that has become a common English language word. Comparative advantage, where you focus on the areas where you have undue natural competence than the other person, and then sell what you have to the person who has not such competence and buy what from that person who had the competence you don't have. When you fail in the area of core competence, there's a problem. And that's where our problem is coming from. And what happens is that, as a country, when you begin to lose economic strength, you begin to shed weight on the things you think are not very critical for your survival. Among those things, that you take your sight off issues like sports, not recognizing the impact that we have, and then you reduce your investment in infrastructure, reduce your investment in education, reduce your investment in several other key elements, and gradually until you begin to reduce your investment in insecurity. So we've seen, because of our level of economic management and economic development, that the country has lost focus on some of the areas that required critical human capital investment, including sports. When my youth, as a University of Lagos student, Aloy Ago, who was national goalkeeper, was a student, and he was on scholarship. I can mention Ademola. I'm trying to remember his name. He played for Flying Eagles. He was a student. He was on scholarship. Then, if you go to the Department of Physical Education, you will have 2, 3, 4 Nigerian players, national players. You have the sprinters, the athletes, they were students there. The country could afford that. How many households in Nigeria today? The cost of training a child through the football academy is very expensive. How many families that are struggling to eat can afford that? The government cannot even maintain the national stadium. In the past, it used to be a melting point where the weightlifters and all of them would go there, and we are all on some stipend until they kept developing and went to represent the country. So, unfortunately, because we no longer have those resources, those things are suffering. So you talk of institutional weaknesses. The key thing about institutional weaknesses is that when we cannot organize, when we cannot manage, it reflects in how well we grow. Nigeria, with our sense of responsibility as a Christian, is a praying nation. When we lose the matches we should have won, we begin to pray that other countries should now lose the matches they will win. And we start a permutation on how if Cape Verde or whoever loses 2 matches, we can now qualify. And unfortunately, success is not a happenstance. We need to focus on development, human capital development at the fundamental level. We need to develop economic opportunities that will allow households earn enough income to have discretionary income to invest in things that are not just to eat food. We need to go back and look at our level of productivity. We need to grow our GDP like countries in Africa are also doing. So it's only when we do that that we'll be sure that we'll not have another World Cup failure. Key elements: education, sports development, innovation, technology, research, security, and entrepreneurship. These are areas that we are failing, that are manifesting in our inability to compete in areas where we have competitive advantage. And when you talk of competitive advantage, they are God built us in some ways. Those of us in West Africa have the stamina for sprinting, have the stamina for physical activities, but we seem not to be minding it. God has given us a population of 242 million people. 42% are in the active, productive age. And that set is in the developmental stage. We need to develop them so they will mature into the population that will represent us. I think on that note, so that we can bring in the discussants, I can see my sister Chime has come in. We need to learn a few things from Morocco: long-term planning, football academies, infrastructure development, governance reforms. They are fellow Africans. They've done it and done it right. Morocco came, last World Cup, they got to the semi-final. And we know that we can do it better than them. What are the things we need to do? I've mentioned them: economic development, macroeconomic stability, security, sports, governance. And finally, what do we think will happen to the economy? We think the economy will grow this year between 3.8 and 4.2%, provided we maintain macroeconomic stability. What are our concerns? Electionary activities. We think they need to manage the electoral process more effectively to avoid unintended issues. We think the government may engage in expansionary budgetary expenditure to win over electorates, and that will lead to liquidity suffix that could trigger inflationary pressure. We think inflation can also come from increase in energy costs, because the war has started again, and Hutu and Saudi are now at daggers drawn. And then we are worried at the rate at which government accumulating debt. Because if that continues, we're going to have a situation where the government will struggle, or we need to print money to meet their repayment obligations. In conclusion, Nigeria's consecutive World Cup misses and worsening insecurity may not directly cause weaker economic performance. Rather, they may be manifestations of the same challenges: declining national competitiveness, driven by weak institutions, inadequate human capital development, and persistent governance deficit. Thank you all.
Please, let's keep the applause going. Please, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. We just I take that from Harvard, and you know how much you'll be paying. Well researched. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, perhaps as you advised in your keynote address, I think we should just pray and then end this quarterly discourse. So let us pray, everyone. Now, let us pray as we bring on the panelists. By the way, talking about national competitiveness, anyone remember we set up the National Competitive Council of Nigeria? NCCN? Yeah, I'm sure. It's all faded into long memory, isn't it? It's not dead, but it's somewhere there hanging somewhere. I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time anyone talked about that National Council on Competitiveness of Nigeria. I think it just simply faded out. And I spoke to the gentleman who was the head of that organization a few times on TV, doing one or two interviews. And I think he just, I think they just resigned to whatever happens to it as another government fancy, as it were. And today, national competitiveness had gone to sleep, in a manner of speaking. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Amaju Melvin Pinnick, my first panelist who will take the center of the conversation tonight. Please give it to the former president, NFF, and a council member of FIFA. Please come to the stage, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, let's play some ball tonight. Let's play ball. I'm not a fan of football, by the way. So I'm the only man in the room who doesn't like football. 22 people running after one piece of round ball sound a little bit somehow to me. 22 people. I can't really see individual work. But if you do swimming, a few other things, yes, that's it. Play lawn tennis, table tennis, you know. Why are you looking at me? Looks to me. Yeah, 22 people, 90 minutes, then it goes to 120 minutes. And sometimes you have to use penalties to decide which is the worst one. Right? Once it gets to penalties, I just move away from the TV. It's not a good way of deciding who the winner is. But that's a story for another day. Ms. Chinwegwem, where are you in the room? Oh, please step to the podium. Please give a round of applause. Please just take your seat next to Mr. Maju Pinnick. Thank you very much for coming. We understand it's been a very wet day in Lagos, so we want to make do very quickly with this as business. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, would you kindly join us back on the stage, since you are going to pray for us? Okay, I need to bring someone else to the, Mr. Dakuku Peter's side is joining us online. Professor Bungwad is not yet here. He might join online. Okay, then I'm going to take the remaining seat, since no one is taking it. All right, I think we want to make this as quick as possible. And I think, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, you made this relatively easy for me, considering the well thought and well delivered presentation, well researched. Let me start with the man amongst us who seemed to be the outlier, and that's the Mr. Pinnick. The rest of us are in the financial on Market Street, so he's the one who is on the Sports Street. So let me start with you, sir. Well, when you look at the economy from the eyes of football and sports, what do you see really, the way we are going? Are we doing well? How do you see us on this side of things? Sports, which is entertainment, what have you, and then the rest of us who preach economic, macro, mini macro, monetary policies and all that. What do you see? Do you see us doing well? What's your assessment of what we're doing and what we're not doing too well?
Thank you very much. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm no longer a member of the FIFA Council. You know, I lost my election by 1 vote, but I'm the deputy chair of the FIFA Men's Organizing Committee, which also encapsulates the World Cup.
Oh, yeah. Next time, please give me a round of applause. Next time, I'll be interested in football, and you have my vote.
Yeah, I also serve as the presidential advisor to the CAF president, which makes me a member of the committee. When my Ogo called me, I think I was in Canada then, you know, I was in charge of some venues, and wanted me to come for this event. I said it was going to cost him a lot because I'm meant to have traveled straight to London, then take my family, we'll go on our cruise. But you have to bring me to Nigeria. I know what that involves, so get ready to write your check here. But a lot has been said about Nigeria not competing in the last 2 World Cups. I think we'll come to that. But there's definitely a synergy between football and also the socio-economic impact or whatever it is. Because you cannot isolate one from the other. Football is business. It depends on how you perceive it. It depends on how you see it. It depends on how you want to throw it into the ring. In Nigeria, it can be a social or a creative or an entertaining or a fitness thing. But in the world, it's big business. In the UK, it's not what you can comprehend, where you have the head of the FA sits with the King of England every Tuesday to ask, oh, there's no problem in football. Because if there's a problem, there's a massive problem in the economy. That's how football is taken very seriously in other part of the divide. Hans J. Morgenthau, in his book Politics Among Nations, highlighted factors that make a country a superpower. The first thing he said was natural resources. In Nigeria, we have that in abundance. The second thing he said was that of population, which even if you subdivide it into quality and quantity of the population, we have all. This quality, maybe Agege is quantity, or whatever. I'm not trying to, so we have both sides of the population. He also talked about agricultural potentials, which of course we have limitlessly. In fact, there's no part of Nigeria that is not arable in terms of agric. I'm a farmer as well, so. Then talk about industrial capacity, natural morale. But the most elemental factor that he said that makes a country a superpower is that of leadership. Because leadership is the only animate factor. It's the only human beings of all these factors that can coordinate these other factors for society development. What I'm saying is, if you look at what is going on in the country, there's no way you can isolate football success or failure from the economy. I'm a believer in this country. I'm somebody that loves projecting this country like to the highest heaven because I'm in a space where I interface globally. And I also believe that when Nigeria bets eventually to be one of the biggest and the strongest countries in this world. But we are tilting and we are getting there. And you can see it clearly that it's a country ordained by God, like you keep saying about praying. Prayer is very elemental, it's very key. Because where things cannot get to, that's what prayer gets to. So let's not castigate prayer. I'm a believer in prayer, I'm a believer in God, and I'm a beneficiary of God's gift. In fact, they call me a covenant child, and I love it. But if you look at where we are headed as a country, you know that there is so much to be done. If I tell you about my experiences in NFF, we will not leave here. It's not because we couldn't qualify. It's not because we didn't, running football in Nigeria, I can say it is a piece of cake. But if every factor can say the same about the various factors, I give you an example. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I think anything I remember, I'll just keep saying. What other sector in Nigeria can boast of coming out 23rd globally. None. Today, Nigeria is ranked number 26 in the world in football. The highest Nigerian university is ranked 1,100 in the QS World Global Index for universities. Insecurity, we are 140 something out of 100 and something. We can keep going on, but it's pause. In Glasgow 2 days ago, if you look at the medal table, we're number 2 among the Commonwealth of Nations. So it's an area that we should take very seriously, keep projecting Nigeria. Let me digress a bit. As I was checking out of my hotel, the Lotte Palace Hotel in New York, exactly a week ago, exactly this time last week, when I checked in, because, we're going around, you can imagine Miami, Dallas, Houston, all this. We got into New York on Wednesday, after the game in Atlanta. So when I checked into my suite on the 56th floor, I opened my safe, kept my jewelry. I saw a watch in the safe. I took it out. It was a chopper with diamonds. He just left it there, So I forgot. So when I was leaving, I saw it again. So I took it. As I was checking out, I requested to see the manager. So the duty manager came and said, no, I want to see the general manager of the hotel. Exactly a week ago. And the general manager came and said, yeah. So I said, I saw this watch in my safe. He took it and he looked at it. I said, really? I said, yes. What's your name? I told him, where are you from, Nigeria? Really? I said, what do you mean? I'm telling you. But I gave it to him. They gave me a letter of commendation. They did this, they did that. But they are projecting Nigeria. My wife, does she need it? She does it. She can't wear a stolen thing. So also my daughter, nobody, I can't do that. So wherever you are as a Nigerian, let's think positive. That's just one thing. I always preach about thinking positive and praying for the leaders. I know what I saw as president. So like I said, there's always a synergy between sports, football administration. Football does not operate in isolation. They operate in a polity. And that polity influences a lot going on in the football space. Are the administrators protected? No, they are not protected. Are they projected? No, they are not projected. I spent 8 years in NFF. Out of the 8 years, I can tell you, every other week we were visiting EFCC, ICPC. Not because we did anything wrong, but people wanted a forceful regime change. And the government at that point were not. Not the government as in Buhari, because when the president eventually knew what was happening, he called and he gave me OFR. I didn't lobby for it. When he saw the record from DSS, I said, this guy. But how do we continue as a country? Well, we didn't qualify for the second time in the World Cup in 2022. Mm-hmm. When we qualified in 2018, let me take you. We were in the toughest group in history of African football. Find out. With Zambia, the former AFCON winner. Cameroon, they had just won the Nations Cup. Algeria, they had not lost a game in 23 games. Nigeria. We won their games with 2 games to spare because we knew what we were doing. First, motivate your athletes. Give them the best. Put them in the best hotels. Tell them that national pride, national interest is. We did all those things. God's companies like PwC, God's companies sat with them, ensure that even every of their investment, even if you earn 10,000, 5,000 can go to this what to give to you. We did all those. In 2022, we started. Even Cape Verde are saying today, we beat them home and away. Go and check. But the new format came where you just need to win the last game. We didn't lose to Ghana. We didn't win, but the away goals rules took us out. But eventually, we didn't go for the World Cup. That was my saddest moment. But guess what? People were praying for us to lose so that Pinnick will leave. Not because we're not competent, but because people did not like exactly what we're doing. I give an example again. We went to the villa. When I was talking about 80% of our funding were from private sector, because when I came in, we were 100%. That is, NFF was below 100. We didn't have any sponsors. It was very bad that we had to pay for jerseys. Pay. We had to pay for jersey for a game. After just winning the Nations Cup in 2013. It was really bad. And I asked myself, what am I doing here? Why did I contest for this election? Yeah, I did. But I had to go home and said, listen, you cannot fail. And the first thing we did, I called Bismarck Rewana, you can ask him. I want you to consult for us as a financial consultant. We got BWC, we even got Bain & Co. We wanted people to look at things differently. But some institutions will want that. When you're introducing integrity, they won't. I'm telling you, they will not. We went to the villa. When I stood up and I told the president, thank this company. From 0%, we are now 80% self-funding. Buhari paused and said, really? I said, yes. I said, everything is captured in our year ending, prepared by PwC, no less the second biggest in the world. And he said, really, yes. And everybody applauded me, and he beckoned on me to come. And I came and I told him, he said, really, yes, I should go. The minister then went out and said what? That they shouldn't listen to what I was saying. Why? Because if we're 100% self-funding, where would they get that thing from?
You see why I said you should come to the market. Mr. Johnson Chukwu, we need to take his financials for the last 5 years and just bring it to the market. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there's a whole lot there. But you see, the point here is that, Madam Chinwe, it looks like the sports folks are taking our lunch. Because I thought we are beating them in some of the biggest parameters. That we have we're the best fourth performing market this year, not just in Africa, but globally. That's the Nigerian stock market. I think Ghana is about between us and us are the two. In terms of the positivity of the financial market, even in terms of central banking, Nigeria still ranks. So our financial market also rank among the best in the world. So I think from sports to the financial market, we are also doing really, really well. We are commended. Globally speaking, and I love that. But I want us to structure this a bit between sports, the market, investment, and security. Madam, Ms. Egwim, I'm looking at our foreign direct investment, monetary, fiscal policy actions that have helped us to ramp up on inflows. But as far as those inflows are divided into both portfolio and foreign direct investment, how much more do you think we need to do? At the last ranking that I saw, Egypt was leading Africa at about $15.1 billion in FDI. We're at number 4 position with about $4-point-something billion. For the number Johnson just showed us, we did just about $152 million. And I'm sure that's enough for this street alone in Victoria Island, not for the entire 220 million of us. What are your thoughts? How can we redress that quickly?
Okay, not me quickly. How can we address the FDI issue, right?
Well, if you do that quickly, I will appreciate it.
I'm not going to do it quickly, though. Thank you so much for having me here. When I saw the invitation, I gasped. I was like, what am I going to talk about with sports? Because I'm not a fan of football. But obviously, by proxy, with my dad and my siblings, I tend to follow some of the dynamics that are going on with football. And I think the best way to answer your question is to try to, create some kind of macro interlinkage. You did say that in terms of financial performance, we're doing well. Beyond that, even with the macro story right now, Nigeria is well positioned. When you look at indicators like the reserves, what we're seeing with exchange rate throughout this year has been stable at a particular range. And, over the past few weeks, I've been running series of mid-year economic outlook retreats. And I would say that the challenging indicator has been inflation, because in as much as we're seeing a healthy macro story from a government perspective, when you go into the micro, consumer purchasing power is still extremely weak. Pockets are squeezed and purses are pinched. So you're asking about FDI. Capital importation data has been healthy. I think the latest is Q1 for 2026. And what we did see was that portfolio investment inflow accounted for the chunk, close to almost 90% if I'm to approximate, while FDI was weak. FDI is long-term investments. So when we engage with specific investors, throughout my different roles in different financial institutions, there's one thread that keeps repeating itself, and that is security. That's one of them. Policy consistency. That's the second. And just the comfort that if they come in with their investment for long term, they're able to exit with ease. So if these three core elements are not addressed, FDI inflow will continue to be challenged, right? But I actually want to tiptoe into the inflation aspect of the economy and linking
Please
it
go
to
ahead.
football.
It's very important. Yes.
Yeah. So especially the World Cup that just concluded. Yeah. So when you look at it, you can look at it from different perspectives. There's participation. There's so many friends, colleagues that I know that would ordinarily have been able to attend in the past, but given the dynamics with how spending patterns have changed, now consumers are more interested with priority spending as opposed to expenditure that would be seen as luxury. And unfortunately, this does sit within luxury because you must feed, you must be able to house yourself, clothe yourself before thinking about getting on a plane to go watch football live. So from that perspective, we can see that purchasing power has really eroded opportunities for a handful of potential participants, right? And then you engage with specific families or households like parents who have their kids in training schools like skill acquisition for football. Some of them have had to stop or pause those activities because again, when you look at the household consumer basket, you're looking at school fee first before you think of an extracurricular activity like football training. So there are interesting interlinkages. I would have said exchange rates, but that's one indicator that would always keep me up at night. But this year, it's been relatively stable, so I'm not going to touch on that. But yeah, so those are my thoughts.
I appreciate that. Please give a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. There was this new report, Mr. Johnson Chuku, published by Afrobarometer just a few weeks ago about, it was a survey done over the last 2 years across about 28 African countries. And respondents were asked about, in general, how would you describe the present economic situation of your country? Percentage of those say fairly bad, very bad. Then the chart says economic issues that are most important problems. And this was about 56,000 respondents across the African continent. This was a report by Afrobarometer. And there are 15 items. And what are the issues most important to Africans? Health comes first, 38%. Unemployment, 33%, number 2. Number 3, increasing cost of living. Number 4, education. Number 5, infrastructure, roads. Number 6, water supply. Number 7, crime and security. Number 8, electricity. Number 9, food shortage. Number 9, poverty and destitution. Number 10, corruption. So even in terms of concerns for Africans, based on this survey, corruption comes at far number 10 or 11. And just 8% Africans are more concerned about health, unemployment, and increased costs of living. Okay. Can you situate that for me within the reforms that we've done and why we keep saying whether those reforms are sufficient and are they necessary? Necessary and sufficient, what more do we need to do so that we don't miss not just the World Cup? We can bring the World Cup in, we can fix insecurity as well, and competitiveness, by the way.
Okay, what I would say is that looking at the parameters that are of concern to Africans, starting from health to unemployment to infrastructure, 1 to education to inflation and other factors. If you start from the one that they consider most important to them, which is health, and your question is that are the reforms sufficient? I think if you look at reforms, I don't think any of the federal government reforms have focused on healthcare sector. The reforms have focused on macroeconomic variables like exchange rate. A lot have happened on the exchange rate space, harmonizing the exchange rate, liberalizing the market, stabilizing the exchange rate. We've seen exchange rate moderate materially in the past 1 year. The other areas that they have focused on is with banking sector reforms. So we've seen a banking sector reform that relates to the recapitalization of the banks. So those are what you may consider as the most pronounced areas of intervention of the government. And then you look at the downstream oil and gas sector, harmonizing liberalizing the oil and gas sector, removing the subsidy on petroleum products. And those have multiple effects on the economy. So if you look at the scoring card you just mentioned, would I say the reforms have been sufficient?
Necessary or sufficient already?
Yes, I would say that for you to understand the reforms we've implemented, the impact of the reforms that we've implemented, you have to segment the impact into two broad segments. One is as it relates to the macroeconomic environment. Two, as it relates to the households. At the macro level, some of the data I published here indicate that the macroeconomic environment has shown some level of stability. I said that reserve has moved to about 51 billion, the highest so far since 2009 December. We said inflation has moderated to 15.91%. We said that we don't have the unemployment figure, which is one of the areas of concern from the report you presented. So if you look at the capital market, we've seen a capital market that gained over 54% so far this year. We see capital importation. The first quarter of this year was $10.4 billion. Entire last year was $23 billion. So in the first quarter of this year, we've almost done half of what we did the entire year, 2025. So that's also, we have seen crude production has moved to about 1.55 million barrels a day. Luckily for us, the tailwind effect of the war in between US and Iran has led to Brent trading above close to $100. So that has also helped to boost our reserve. So at the macro level, one would say that, look, the economy has done fairly well. At the micro level, which is a household, I said inflation last year, June, was 15.4%. This year, June, 15.9%. Overall, inflation compounded for the past 2 years over 41%. Household income has not increased by as much as 41% in the past 24 months. So that means an average Nigerian household has suffered erosion in their purchasing power, in their standard of living. So for an average Nigerian household, the economic situation has worsened for an average Nigerian household. So we need to put in both compartments. So which takes us to, are the reforms sufficient? The reforms have largely been at the macro level, macroeconomic level. The factor that will address the deterioration in the standard of living of average citizens have not been addressed, which is one of the concerns you mentioned, unemployment. We need to come up with a policy framework that will stimulate real sector productive activities in those critical sectors that we have relative comparative advantage. The topic of the presentation was largely about that we are non-mining. We are actually failing in areas where we have comparative advantage. So a country with the kind of demography we have in terms of youthful population, look at the size, about 42% are between the age of 16 and 24 years. That is a very strong labor force anywhere in the world. Most of them are not employed. And to worsen matters, many of them don't have skills. I've heard narratives said that, look, the people who felt that you can turn children into beggars when they were children forgot that the children will become adults and they will no longer be able to live on begging. And because they no longer, even if they try to beg, they look menacing. And well, you can't give them stipend again, and they will take it by force because their muscles are bulging. So we have a large pool of the youthful labor force that are not employable.
Labor capital.
Yes. And therefore, we are not able to take full advantage of the benefits of a large populated country.
Thank you so much. Let me quickly throw this online to Professor Bongo Adi, Professor of Economics at the Lagos Business School. Professor Bongo Adi, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you, boss.
Thank you so much, Professor. It's good to have you online. Now, my first question to you is to take what Mr. Johnson Chuku said a little bit further in terms of how we can restore Nigeria's competitiveness, whether it's an investment destination, industrial manufacturing, in sports, like we had in the glorious 80s and perhaps early 90s and all that. What are your thoughts? How do we get this done and very quickly? I'm going to use that phrase often this evening, and quickly, because we're losing speed, we're losing time, we're losing money, we're losing people. And I mean, we're losing people literally every day. Dozens of lives through insecurity, kidnapping. We're losing our sense of dignity. When teachers and school children are kidnapped and being shown on television by criminal entrepreneurs who have capitalized on them. And what are your thoughts? Let me give you the space to give me a few. How to restore national competitiveness?
Well, Bosun, I don't know why you've chosen to ask me a very difficult question, and you want a very quick answer. Unfortunately, the question you asked does not admit of any quick fix, any fast response as such.
Please
Because competitiveness, just like my sister Chinwe said earlier about FDI, is a long-term thing. So you just don't wake up and become competitive. So somebody is competitive means that the person is the best. And to be best, you need to have put in the work. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of deliberate, intentional effort. So the same goes for an individual, the same goes for a country. And, these days, we are not just talking about, sectoral, or picking winners, industry sectors to support. The age and time in which we are talking about, every sector at the same time. So call it capability orchestration. And so you begin to break it down sector by sector in Nigeria, you will see that is a far cry. Mr. Chukwu, pointed in that aspect, looking at health and all that. So yes, we are missing out, and it's beginning to appear like time, we're running against time. So first, there is a physical dimension, tangible things that we need to do, which, of course, we have to talk about infrastructure. And then the second one is the mental technology. So two types of technology, the physical technology, which we need to build. Then the second one is the mental technology, because you just mentioned that we're losing people. Now, I don't want to go to, the fatal one where, the criminal entrepreneurs killing people every day, insecurity all over the land. But let me dwell on the fact that when you say that you like Nigeria these days and you want to stay in Nigeria if you're a young person, your mates are likely to, question your sanity. So we've reached at that equilibrium where it is now optimal to just want to leave Nigeria for whatever outside. I know that this is a cycle. It comes back in every generation, but this one, I can't, my living memory doesn't give me anything that looks like it. So it's gotten to that level where every Nigerian who has any bit of skill, in fact, people actually build skills just to leave Nigeria, not to use their skills to build the nation. So I think that is the most the critical missing component here. People have no incentive again to stay in Nigeria. And then why don't they have that? Because of the conditions here, especially insecurity and the absence of infrastructure. So I just came out from a program, a workshop where some industry, they brought together some experts to discuss the excise tax and all that. So my presentation on the fiscal constraint that Nigeria has to, weather through all these years. And then so the question that came up from that room was, should we really be increasing taxes? Because I listened to an external expert who led the conversation, a professor of taxation is his area of expertise. And then the impression is that Nigeria doesn't collect enough tax, about roughly 10% tax to GDP ratio, which is among the lowest in the world. But that is far from the truth. Trade cost is highest in Nigeria. I mean, globally, Nigeria is highest when it comes to trade costs. The cost, what people spend to do anything. Think of the Okada rider in any Nigerian city, how much they have to pay to non-state actors. Pat told me we characterize that as political, you call it economic brigandage. So we are actually held hostage by non-state revenue collectors. Now, this revenue they collect do not make it to the government. Some estimates will have that, as kind of more larger than the government revenue every month, every year. Yet nobody has actually done anything about that. So talking about tax, because I'm talking about how do we raise the financing to build this physical infrastructure, which does not exist, which is creating, this incentive for people to just dump this nation. Because there's no infrastructure, there's no investment in education, even though the GDP seems to be stabilizing, but it's a jobless growth. And then when you try to dissect the GDP into the core and non-core aspects, you will realize that what is actually driving the growth, the so-called growth, is more of the non-core aspects, not the core aspect of the GDP. Okay, so the core aspect, you're looking at the private investment. FDI is not happening. My sister just pointed in that direction. Because people look at the prospect, can they exit when they want to? Okay, and then what are the ease of doing business? So when you put all these things together, looking at the funding, I believe that the funding exists, but there is no political will to really, how do I call it? How do I describe it? For the government to really enforce itself on the system so that we have just one system, not having parallel systems that do not speak to each other. Now, this is a conversation that people do not want to have. Okay, so you have non-state actors collecting taxes, tolls everywhere. Okay, yet government is taxing, so because I keep saying this, Nigeria was not set up as a tax-paying republic. It was just a sharing, resource sharing republic that we've run until this tax reform that we are still on. Okay, so we do not have the infrastructure to do that. And so because we can't collect enough, government is always taking the line of least resistance, which is, okay, those corporates, get them to pay. And then we have multiple taxation. So it creates a very big problem.
Sounds more structural issues that we can't just have whether the political will or whatever to deal with. So, which is my point? Be on standby, because I'm going to ask my neighbor here, my closest neighbor, Majupinik, about structural reforms that we need. We've done reforms, but has that worked before reforms? Which is, yes. Oh, he's also online? Oh, I apologize for that, Dr. Dakuku Peterside. Are you there, sir? I wanted to give you the toughest meat to bite into, and that's the elections cycle, and whether the 2027 elections, now we're going to election cycle, with all the spending already going out there, whether what that will do for us. So, but let me just bring that in very quickly because we all have our eyes on that already. Do you think electoral cycle, the spending has started? So whether you're distributing 2 billion naira worth of food in some part of the country by First Lady or things are popping up across states. Everybody's distributing something. I watch too much TV these days, maybe, so I see a lot of that. What are your thoughts? Do you think the electoral cycle we're coming, how do you think we can deal with the likely inflationary outcome of that, and whether we can navigate this electoral cycle very nicely as not to hurt whether portfolio, direct investment, raise competitiveness, maintain exchange rate, inflation, and just sail through in some way? My neighbor here is shaking his head a little bit, not so visibly, but I can see that. Dr. Dakuku, I'll give you just about 2 minutes to make some political statement.
All right, thank you very much, Bosun. Thank you, Group Managing Director of Cowrie Assets, the MD, my fellow panelists. Bosun, you want to put me in trouble. Let me tell you 3 things you may not know. I'm on the line to be appointed DG, National Competitive Council of Nigeria.
Did I mention that at the start? I have some level of witchcraft in me, but just go ahead. Yeah.
So what you're setting me up for is to claim after my appointment that it's a fake agency, and you will get EFCC and ICPC to go after me. You will not succeed.
Amen. Let us pray. So
I'm glad that that's what you want to set me up for. However,
I love the competitiveness. Yes.
However, if you believe that that agency is obsolete, I'm not sure you have seen it all. But I don't want us to live here on a more serious note without connecting the dots between our performance in sports, the state of security in the country, and the state of the economy. I'd like to thank Mr. Johnson Chukwu for laying solid foundation for what I believe will be a robust conversation. But I want to take it a bit further. For us to be very clear about the connection, that's key to me, Bosun. Key, that's something I like us to take away from. And for us to go away with the connection, I want us to look at a common pattern, and I'll do that in 3 minutes. I'm conscious of the fact that we should leave here by 5 p.m. Nigerian time. If you look at
that's competitiveness. I love that. They're ready for the job.
If you look at the pattern between the year 2000 and I can stretch it, first decade of democracy, 2010 or 2018, let me stretch it to 2018. Nigeria qualified for 4 World Cup outings. And between that same period, we had insecurity. So the argument that insecurity is of recent does not hold water. We had insecurity. However, it was localized. Boko Haram started somewhere in the northeast. We had militancy in my south, and Amadi Binik is also part of it. We had a few cases of farmer-header clashes here and there. They were all isolated cases. And so we had insecurity. It wasn't nationwide as it is today. Within the same period, the economy, there was some growth in the economy. You can claim that it was not, it didn't create broad-based prosperity. You can claim that, and you're also very right. And at the same time, we qualified for World Cup. Compare that to another decade, between 2018 and 2026. Insecurity wasn't. Now, it wasn't just a localized issue. Every part of the country was dealing with one form of insecurity or the other. Kidnapping got worse in the northeast part of the country. Boko Haram, ISWAP, and all of those things, of course, became nationwide, including Oyo, the most recent one in Oyo. We're all living witnesses to it. Ethno-religious crisis. Now the cry for, especially in the southeast, the agitation, separatist agitation became widespread. Within that same period, we didn't qualify for World Cup in 2022, in 2022, and in 2026. And so you can see a common pattern. What it means is that as insecurity got worse, the economy depreciated. We also lost our place in football. Is it a coincidence? Not likely. It's a pattern, and until we take note of that pattern, we may not come out of this quagmire. I put this out in my publication, and Professor Patrick Lumumba, who is my senior friend, put out an argument and said he doesn't agree completely with me. And Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Group MD of this, had alluded to it here in his earlier presentation. His argument at the time was that, look, China did not qualify for World Cup. China is as endowed as Nigeria population-wise. China has resources. China, apart from having resources, also have a lot of young people. But he missed out a point which we'll talk about here. He talked about Singapore. That Singapore is a nation that's done well in the economy. They didn't qualify to the World Cup. He talked about Vietnam. He talked about Malaysia. He talked about Indonesia. And we all engaged on that. At the end of our engagement, two things were established. One is the fact that, historically speaking, Nigeria has right to expect to have a seat at the World Cup. Historically speaking, going by our antecedents, going by all our endowments. That's one. Now, two is what Mr. Johnson Chukwu had said earlier. The fact that we have a youthful population, we have talented people. And so it is naturally expected that we should be at the World Cup. So the question is, what went wrong? Because I don't have the time, I would have taken you through the entire gamut of issues. 4 critical things went wrong. One is the fact that football has since stopped being a sport, for entertainment's sake. It is a reflection of everything wrong with our nation or everything right with our nation. And I'll take the 4 critical issues. Football, our performance in football reflects a nation that thinks short term. We manage crisis reactively. We don't plan long term. We don't build institutions. We don't put systems in place. In fact, I have another senior friend. His name is Dr. Amuta, who says we're a nation of anyhow. Anything goes. Anyhow. And if you listen to Amaju in his presentation, you can connect to that. And so we have resources. Resources exist. What the challenge is misallocation, mismanagement, and in some cases, resources are captured. In fact, I don't want to say, because I may not back it with adequate data as it is right now. Right now, what we're experiencing as a country is resource capture. It's not even resource misapplication. And so corruption is another pillar. Resource mismanagement and corruption is another pillar. So I've established the first. A nation that thinks short term, where we don't have room for long planning, where we don't have room for institution building, a nation that corruption has become a culture, a way of life that is tolerated. And all of those things connect to a nation where there is leadership failure and there is lack of good governance. That takes us to another one. Football is a game, like most sports, that thrives on systems and structure. That's another challenge we face as a nation. Whether the challenge we face with insecurity, is it that we don't have a military? We don't have budget for military every year. All of this had affected our military. Whether it's lack of systems, whether it's lack of long-term planning, long-term thinking. whether lack of resource application, lack of, in fact, the persistence of corruption, despite the EFCC, the ICP, who can set up whatever they want to set up. Now, the other thing is the fact that we don't even plan long term. What's our vision for our football? In terms of execution, even if we put resources today, in execution, are we diligent? These are the core issues. Lack of system, lack of structure, lack of organization, lack of resilience. Amadi Pini appropriately captured when he said that, I think it's Mr. Johnson Chuku, that other nations that did well and lost in the World Cup have already started planning for the next World Cup. Us, we're not talking about it. Nobody's engaging on that. And so, football for me is a mirror of everything wrong with our nation. The challenge is not football in itself. It's the fact that lack of long-term planning, lack of structure, lack of system is in place, a culture of corruption has cost us, one, our absence at the global football arena, has cost us the insecurity we're dealing with, has cost us an economy that is not responsive, an economy that is not performing. And we can see all the indicators. Even when we say there's marginal growth in GDP, it is not yielding broad-based prosperity. Our people are in deep hunger, in deep poverty. If there's anything, poverty has risen in the last 3 years. Things have worsened. The reason is simple. What kind of growth do we have? We need to examine it again. These are the issues.
All right. These are the issues. Thank you so much. Please give Dr. Peterside, Akuku Peterside, a round of applause. We're going to have a conversation on Arise News very soon, once you pick up that appointment. Congratulations in advance. I'm going to come back to Amaju Penix.
Please don't quote me on the appointment. That appointment,
no.
I'm sure you know it's in my dream.
This is a Chatham House where
only.
You are among friends here.
No, it's in my dream only. So I just woke up and realized I was dreaming.
Oh, I'm going to dream with you. Structurally speaking, Mr. Manjupini, what more can we do?
Let me just delve into some of the things that I said, Talking about creating a structure and a system, like I told you earlier when I came on that. When I came on in 2014, I knew that there was a problem. There was a fundamental vacuum we needed to create. We needed to create confidence in investors. We needed to look at areas where we don't need to depend on government for funding of our activities. And how do we do that when the perception about the federation was corruption, lack of structure? That's why we brought in PwC. We brought in financial derivatives. It was very expensive on us, but we did all those. But guess what? Financial derivative was also invited to EFCC.
But guilty by association.
No, exactly. So if I can tell you that PwC, the only thing that I can stand there today to talk is because we had those organizations working with us. So everything that you said we stole, we captured in our year ending. Clear. Now, let me talk about our focus. Our focus, we had the long term, short term, and the medium term. The short term, which of course is the QIP, the Quick Impact Project, was recruiting some of these Nigerians you mentioned there. I brought in Iwobi. I brought in Ademola Lukman. I went to their homes. I went to their parents. I got Tammy Abraham last minute. I got a very key last minute. I did. I have all their numbers. I communicated with them. Those are our quick impact programs. And we did them. We had meetings, town hall meetings with them in England, and some of them said they will come. Their parents, we said no. There was nothing we didn't do in trying to get them. Secondly, I told you about our jersey. We needed to create something that would attract them. When Puma, I went to Puma, they said no. They said to me, the old man in Puma, and I don't want to say, it's very disturbing what he said about Nigerians. Then Adidas said Nigeria was a no-go area. We were using Adidas. I went to Nike and I told myself I was going to get Nike on my own. I was in the US, I was in Holland, I went everywhere. I finally got Nike and we are still using Nike today. And I told Nike, Nike asked me, what do you want us to do with our jersey? I said, freestyle. I want a jersey you can wear to church, you can wear to mosque, you can wear to party, you can wear everywhere. That's the beginning of the jersey you see everywhere today. I said freestyle, and it gave them a lot of confidence. We did all those. Then we're partnering states in building infrastructure. Look at the one in Benin. Then we also got our sponsors, build a football house in East State and build 2 pitches. Now, let me use Morocco as a paradigm shift. Politically, they are strong in football. Why? Because the government enabled them. Structurally, they have 44 elite training zones. So their intention is winning the World Cup. How do we win the Cup? Look at, they were provided for, they were projected, and they were protected. It's not because you don't have the personnel. It's not because you don't have people that cannot run football in Nigeria. But if you ask me to go back to NFF like they've been doing, and I said no, because my wife would say, I will divorce you. Because she knew what she went through. She knew what I went through. Even Dakoko knew what he went through when he was in Nimasa. So when eggheads, so to speak, or decent people are in public positions in Nigeria, because you are going to introduce what ordinarily people would not want to introduce, you find it that they always have problems. To think about it. I don't want to mention names. But what I'm saying is, all these things are things that we could have done. But listen, okay, also, let us look at the larger society. We want to partner a company like MTN. MTN spends about 60 billion to buy diesel. The company, yes, 60 billion to run all their sites. So how do you want a company like that to partner you when operational costs? I also play in the oil and gas industry. I know what the companies are doing now, going offshore and living onshore in ensuring that they save in terms of operational cost. That 60 billion, just imagine 60 billion at average of 500 million. We build 120 pitches all over the country. Do you know what that will bring? Let me give you an example about not having infrastructure. A player from Warriors, very talented young boy. Think we are nowhere to play football. Nowhere. Their training camp is, and the guy joined and started joining kidnapping. It was not a kidnapper. Joining, and they told some of us about it. I said, no, go and look for that boy. Guess what? That boy is a part of the under 20 team today abroad. So we have 1 million. So we are talking about talent. We have them in abundance. 2 years ago in Lagos, the FA Cup finals was between a team in Maiduguri and a team in, I think, Kwara. The team in Maiduguri had 9 out of the 12 players from the IDP camp. What does that tell you? Where did they play football on? I recall the first time Gianni came to Nigeria. I picked him up from the airport. We were going to Transcorp. I didn't know he was counting the number of people playing football on both sides from Abuja airport. And I said, Pinnick, I counted 11. Playing on what? Sand. Road. So just imagine if we have all those infrastructure and the government is intentional about protecting, providing, and projecting administrators. Trust me, that's why I said, with all due respect, that running football is a piece of cake. If you can be successful in your business, you can be successful in running football in Nigeria. There's nothing. It's just the political will. Where a governor will call you and say, please, I know your law is like this, but please bend it because I don't want my team to be relegated. Come on. We see all those things. We an emir will call you and say, listen, how many Northerners are in this team? We see all those things. So I'm telling you, where people, if, for example, the president calls and say, if you look at using Morocco again as a paradigm shift, the king, in 2019, they were prime and conditioned to win the Nations Cup in Egypt. Then I was the vice president of CAF. They did everything. They planned. But guess what? When they got to the second round, not quarterfinals, they got defeated. A country was in mourning. And when the administrators went back, some people were calling for the heads of the administrator. They did this, they did that. The king of Morocco, Saidi VI, called the president of the federation, sat him down and said, what went wrong? He told him, say, okay, we are going to fix it. Fixing it took them to the semifinals of the World Cup. That's leadership. That's the government. But in Nigeria, the moment you will go and meet a minister I can be president of NFF. Really, we are from the same village, because if you leave this office, you come back to that village. Okay, let's go and fight. And that's the beginning. You find out a minister tells you. I recall when I said Bismarck went to EFCC, a minister called and said, because some of these companies that went to say, listen, we cannot have the money in your account. It's okay, keep it in financial derivatives. Whenever we need it, we'll request for it. And once, Bismarck, it's like taking money from, I don't want to talk about this scrutiny. It's worse than EFCC at that point. But I liked it. It was introducing proper integrity. So I boasted to the minister then. I said, listen, all our funds, some of our funds in financial derivatives, the accountability is 100%. And he requested that Bismarck should send all the account details before the statement. And guess what? The minister handed it over to EFCC to investigate. Come on. How do you want? And Bismarck told me then that he was done with NFF. That he has never. And that period, they just appointed him as chairman of the Nigeria Economic whatever.
As a member of the yes.
And the chief of staff then screamed that no, this thing should not come out. I was invited to EFCC. People don't understand the overlapping or the cascading effects in all these things. So I'm coming. So it's really, really sad that we have a country so hugely blessed that everybody here, trust me, I'm sure for you to be invited to this place, you can run the NFF if you have the enabling environment, if you have the requisite support, and if you have the zeal, the determination, the passion, the resilience, and of course the fear of God. There's nothing. It's like running your home and be intentional about things. I go to their homes. I talk to them. When we went to Benin, I came to the governor, when I went to Benin to play one of the, just 2 seconds, the qualifying match. I went to Babaji Sharola. I said, we want to go by boat. He said, what, Amaju? By boat? I said, yes. I'll take responsibility. He said, why? I said, you can't be playing in Lagos and going to Benin and be flying. What do you want to tell them about the aquatic life? Football is all about tourism. Let us explore that end. He said, are you sure? I said, yes. It's okay, I'll go with you. He said, go ahead with your program. I went to Abuja. I met the DSS DG. I said, populate both sides with DSS men all the way. Let us do a show of Nigeria that the Super Eagles was going. And really, they did. To the Lagos State government, they used that picture, that video, that our aquatic life is safe. So football can be used in so many ways. But the truth is, like I said, it is difficult.
Yes.
You have people of decency, of the right mind, wanting to be. I know bossing you, for example, if you are called upon to be a minister, you want to think about it. The same thing with Johnson Chukwu, who say, I want to think about it. Because you can be going as a minister today, you can be coming out with your name fully tarnished. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please a round of applause for. Let me allow my panelists to start making the final point. And my final question to Ms. Chinwege has to do with the individual level. And I don't want my participants who are here and the delegates and those who are online to go away with something in their back pocket. So what sectors of the Nigerian economy do you think will give the greatest opportunities for improving personal and household income? I'm feeling my back pocket. That's the point. And everybody here is feeling, except Augustine here at the front, whose pocket is bulging. But I think everybody else here wants their pocket. So where do you see the sectors that can help as we go into the election year and all of that without really perhaps, what are your thoughts? What sectors do you see?
It's very difficult to answer this kind of question because it depends on the perspective. So if it's trying to look at sectors in which you can help your income level as an individual or as a business.
Yes, because petrol prices go back up and up.
Okay, I'm going to give you multiple responses. So from that perspective, you need to be looking at where demand is, right? So the specific commodities or services that Nigerians or individuals cannot do without. So looking at sectors that fall within that dynamic. The economy, 70% of the economy is below middle income. So what kind of products or services would be beneficial to those that fall within that income bracket? But if I should pull out from the national accounts, I would say agriculture. I would always say agriculture, but then at what level of agriculture? Not the primary agricultural level, but agro processing.
Yeah, the way my neighbor here does it.
He definitely is generating income, but I'm saying that everyone can concentrate on that. So looking through the whole value chain of agriculture, so agro processing, you have
Livestock.
no processing, so meshing manufacturing into, so instead of just tomato paste, like moving from the base to middle. Yeah, that's what I mean. So agro processing, also storage as well. That is storage and transportation. That's moving the produce from, let's say, the north where the food basket is to markets within the south. There's still room for output generation within manufacturing. When you dissect the manufacturing sector, I think there are about 13 segments under that sector. So there are opportunities that lie within there. In the orange economy, orange economy is a creative sector. There are auxiliary businesses or industries within there that prove to have some level of opportunities over the next 3 to 5 years. But saying all of this, it may sound a bit cosmetic if we do not, or if the government doesn't focus on industrialization, because power generation is important. You mentioned fuel. So there's a lot of reliance on generators. So industrialization is very much important. I think I've touched on the sectors that are on my green shoot scorecard right now. So agriculture, but not the baseline. That's agro processing. Looking at the 13 segments of manufacturing within the national accounts, considering industries that are auxiliary to the orange economy, which is the creative economy. Real estate is still proving to, from a numbers perspective, to be lucrative as well. But I'm very big on value chain. So when you look at these sectors, also consider their value chain. You'd find opportunities to generate income through those. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. Beautifully put. Thank you so much. Give a round of applause, please. Yes, please. Sir.
Like I said, sorry, I'm also a farmer, and you know some of the difficulties that we also encounter in terms of value chain. When we started farming about a couple of years ago, we decided to build 3 greenhouses that sits on about 4,000 square meters for about 4 football pitches in Oyo State, in a village called Ishe in Fashola. It's a beautiful place, you can't imagine, but trust me, because of security, I can't remember the last time I went to my farm. Now, beyond that, if you see genuine intention by the government of Oyo State to do something very novel, do something very new, give us all the encouragement, build roads, infrastructure within this confine. But we decided, okay, let us go ahead and have a partnership with some of the federal government agencies. Before then, we sourced for the best lab to take tomatoes to powder, because powder has a longer shelf life instead of just a paste. So we met this company in Canada, the food development company. We entered an agreement with them, paid them over $100,000, and they developed what's called the Pinnacle Instant Jollof. But guess what? We brought in all the equipment, everything to Nigeria, but we are still producing in Canada. We move tomatoes, dry it, and take it to Canada and produce in Canada. Why? Because I don't want to talk about it not being very conducive. Meanwhile, we have all the equipment. And politically, we know where that state is. And we know where agencies are. So can I rest my case?
Look, sir, Mr. Pinnick. Look, Mr. Pinnick, I'm going to put how many percentage tariff, Mr. Johnson, should I place on that if I am in the White House right now? I'm going to put 200%.
So what I'm saying is we have so much potentials in this country. If you go to that farm, the Ishe in Fashola Agro Village, you marvel at things that will everything. And guess what? 60% or 70% of the farmers there are not from Oyo State. Yeah, but there's just so much in this country. So we need to sit.
That can be done.
We need to sit and look at ourselves very seriously, whether we are ready as a country to move from this position, from this direction to this direction. Because once we are able to answer that question correctly, trust me, like I keep saying, and it's my belief fervently, that Nigeria will be the greatest country in the world. And that is the truth. Because we have everything, the brains, the beauty, the deliverables, everything we have. So just keep believing. Sometime we'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Round of applause for him. And talking about being ministers, we could just move you into agriculture ministry and then give us someone. Professor Hadi, can we have just the final 30, 60 seconds from you? I'm not asking for too much.
Oh, yeah. So, what should we do? I think everything rests on the government, if you ask me. Because if you look at the stock market,
Give me one priority. Give me one priority over the next 12 months that can run through this election cycle. Give me one policy that we can focus
like I said,
on.
it's about infrastructure and then security. Because the companies that are really facing consumers are not doing so well. So the ones that are doing well are the ones, facing the dollar. So if you're exporting, then yeah. But then they also face a lot of constraints when it comes to logistics and all of that. So yeah, let's improve security. I'm happy that the president has authorized the recruitment of about 28,000 soldiers and so on. So let's hope that helps.
Let's hope that. Thank you so much. Beautifully said. Dr. Dakuku, Peter's side.
Thank you very much. Recall that we had mentioned that part of our problem are one, weak institutions, poor governance practices, lack of long-term thinking. But are all those reversible? The answer is yes. So the challenges we face are not challenges that are not insurmountable. Recruiting more soldiers will not solve the problem of the system. Even I support state police. State police is not enough. You can simply just move the points of corruption from the federal level to the state level. Point of abuse from the federal level to the state level. That's not a problem. Please, can we deal with the root causes of insecurity? Economy that is growing, that is not inclusive. Can we deal with the root causes of football underperformance? And what are those root causes? Can we rebuild our institutions? Can we strengthen our governance capacity? And can we invest in our youth? Now, when we say targeted investment in our youth, it's got multiplier effect. When we don't invest in our youth, we harvest insecurity. When we don't invest appropriately in our youth, you can be sure that the economy of the future will leave us behind. The world is moving towards digital economy, where a lot of things are driven by AI or run on the backbone of infrastructure. We have talked about the fact of which sectors, should we focus on to grow our economy. Trust me, Nigeria has multiple advantages. Whether in agriculture, we have some of the most arable lands. The fact that we have huge population, even in services, we can do well. In IT, ICT, in banking and finance, there are economies that run on finance. Singapore is not endowed with any farmland or natural resources. Simply, they've become a hub for financial services, a hub for maritime service. That's basically what Singapore is running on. We can run on services. So it's not a death knell to just talk about, agriculture, services, and other sectors. We are literally good in most sectors. The only thing is, let's all be intentional in our investment, in strengthening systems, in putting systems in place, and in our governance practices. It's a demand we need to make on our leaders. Without that, we'll continue to cry over and over again. Football is not just about talent, it's about systems.
Thank you. Thank you. Give me a round of applause, please, Dr. Dakuku Petiside, former Director General at NIMASA. We're short of time, and that is the reality. So I'm just going to invite those who will be able to make 30 seconds or less comments from the audience, please, in the hall. 30 seconds or less. Now, those who are, I'm going to have a FIFA here. Yeah, I got some, Mama got here to do the. No, please, sir, please do not stand. Let me do that, please. Thank you. Just 30 seconds or less, straight comment.
Yeah. Thanks so much. My name is Captain Zeno, CEO of Zeno Aviation. This has been very insightful. I've learned a lot. As the conversation was going on, I was looking at the word World Cup, and I said, what do we need to do to be able to host the World Cup? And I like everybody's contribution. But I look at a lot of nations, and a lot of nations, they have Vision 2030, they have Vision 2040, and they can collectively work towards it. And I was thinking, what do we have as a nation? What collective vision is everybody working towards? And I don't think we have that. And I think that's one thing is from a governmental level, if we're able to have everybody can buy into it and start to work towards it.
Thank you so much. What do we need to do to host the World Cup? Just give me that also in 30 seconds.
Realistically, we cannot host the World Cup as a country anymore. We can host it as a continent or half of the continent. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's very nice. Nicely put. I hope you're not heartbroken. Yeah, hold it there. Who's giving me 30 seconds or less? Anyone online who can give me 30 seconds or less? Quickly check online. If any question can just come just about very quickly. Can you quickly check online? Okay, I got another gentleman in the room. That will be the last, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Zeno. I work with Unilever. It's an FMCG company in Nigeria. I think Professor Bongo, I joined when Professor Bongo was actually speaking, came in a little bit late, and I think part of what he said that stuck with me was the fact that those who face the consumers are actually having a hard time at the moment, right? And I had hoped that there'll be a bit more insight as to why, right? Judging from his experience, managing or rather interacting with several FMCG organizations in Nigeria today. That will be one. And then secondly, what's the impact of the delayed implementation of the current budget in Nigeria to all this? Because it seems like a paradox that we are struggling to kind of unravel, judging from the fact that we had hoped that a stable economy coming into 2026, judging from where 2025 had been for us, would have somewhat unlocked a lot of opportunities for us in that space and see consumer growing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you know why he asked that question. Unilever. They just released their result, isn't it, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, isn't it? And they're paying interim dividend, right? 2 naira per share. And they did they're sitting on a mountain of cash, by the way. And they're making a matter of money in Nigeria. I'm going to charge you for that. Yes, that's why I was saying we should talk more about those who are doing FMCG. Oh, you're smiling too. You see the numbers. It is in the room. That's a 4x4 company. Thank you very much for your point. Budget. Who can speak to budget for about 30 seconds? All right. Thank you so much. I love that.
Okay, so from a budget perspective, implementation usually does spill into the next year. So I'm not sure what you mean by slow implementation, because there has been implementation. It's just in terms of like completing the fiscal year. Maybe that's what you're referring to, but we do see budget slippage going into the next year. So I don't think there's anything spectacular or different from what we've seen with regards to the norm over the prior years. Do you want me to touch on the consumer part? Yes, please. Okay. Well, okay. So inflation is the answer. Consumption patterns have shifted. They've changed. Consumer pockets are squeezed. So you're in competition with, your competitors, and priority spending lists for different households and individuals have been adjusted. on the back of what we're seeing with inflation dynamics. The last inflation figures did register a trimming, very tiny, marginal decline. So for me, I refer to it as a plateau. It's still high. I won't give you my projections because you have to pay for that. But like looking ahead, I do expect from a base case scenario, inflation to remain elevated. So that is double digit. The CBN is trying its best to see how inflation dynamics can be brought down to single digit. The initial band was 6 to 9%. So I think it's just a dynamic that we need to keep watching, right? But the nutshell response to your question is inflation, purchasing power has been eroded, consumption, spending has now, people are prioritizing how they spend. So the competition is even harsher for companies like yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your thoughts. Let's give a round of applause. I love that. Okay, so we're going to start to wrap it up because I got a lot of votes here, those who voted for me to be the next minister. Thanks for all your votes, everybody. I got the highest vote, so thank you so much. Anytime it's announced. Just like Mr. Peter said, I'm dreaming. All right, do we have anyone online finally for that 30 seconds?
Yeah, so can I pitch in something? Although Chinwe has answered, the question the person asked why consumers facing, corporates facing consumers. Yes, can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just pick back on what Chinwe just said. In 2024, at the peak of the inflation problem, the poorest households, and then we are talking about 165 million Nigerians, they faced 107% inflation. Well off faced about 67%. So there's almost 50% difference in the inflation that the poor face versus what the rich faced. So and again, incomes are squeezed. Most Nigerians, the consumers spend almost more than half of their income on staples, right? So there is nothing for discretionary spending and all of that. So if you put that into perspective, so you see that if you're really playing in that sector, if you're facing consumers who have to face constrained and compressed wallets, so you're also going to face shrinking margins. I think that's what I have to say to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And finally, is it possible to build a good football system without a strong local league?
Absolutely not. You need a very strong local league because the players they don't fall from heaven. You get them, you source them locally. 20, 30 years ago, most of the Super Eagles players, maybe you want to, were all from the local league, And I believe the right thing is being done right now. The National Sports Commission is peopled by technocrats, by people that know, and they are working closely with the Nigerian Football Federation and the league. So, because when they talk about NFF, some of us just believe that is, there are some good people there, and there are people that are passion-driven about this country and want this country to work, and like I keep saying, we should all keep believing in this country. The president is doing his bit, he's doing his best, and we should compliment what everybody's doing from every side. We should just compliment them. It's not easy being a leader. It's not easy being the head of an organization, because if you look behind, you don't see anybody, you see only yourself. So you must take that decision that will right so many wrongs, that will change so many lives, that will change the dynamics. So it's very easier said than done that we cannot do this, but we keep believing. Once we believe, trust me, it will be done. And work and pray scientifically towards achieving your results. That's just it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A round of applause for all my panelists. Let's take our closing remarks and vote of thanks. Mr. Koli Edoka, where are you? Managing Director, Karo Security. Please let's give her a round of applause as she comes to the podium to give us a round of applause. Then a group photograph for my panelists, and of course she will join as well as the Managing Director of Karo Treasuries.
Thank you. My name is Nkoli Edoka. I'm the Vice President of Karo Asset Management Limited. I will say good evening again to you all distinguished guests, the panelists, the even those that join us online, Dr. Peter Side, Professor Adi. We thank you all for coming. As we draw this edition of the Cowrie Quarterly Economic Discourse to a close, on behalf of the board, management, and staff of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to each and every one of you for being part of today's event. Today's theme, the Nigeria's Conservative World Cup, misses, and worsening insecurity, the economic performance nexus. It challenged us to look beyond conventional economic indicators and examine how governance, security, sports and national identity, and economic prosperity are deeply interconnected. As we can all see today, my sister Chinwe said she didn't know what she could have been saying because she's not a sport lover. But you can see today that, they've all come together, and you can see that we are all interconnected. It has been an enlightening conversation that has broadened our understanding of the far-reaching implications of these issues on investment, productivity, human capital development, and Nigeria's global competitiveness. In no particular order, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to our keynote speaker and host, our own group managing director, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, for setting the tone with a thought-provoking keynote presentation. Our gratitude also goes to Professor Bongo Adi for his incisive economic perspectives. Dr. Dakuku Peter Side, our mentor, for his valuable insights on governance and national development. And we want to also say congratulations on your dream position. Mr. Amaju Pinnick, thank you for bringing a unique perspective on sports administration and its economic impact. And not just that, I just learned today that tomatoes can be put in powder form. So probably I will meet you after this is so we can, we're investment bankers, so we can do one or two on that. So this is my first time. So thank you for bringing, I can smell the money. So thank you for bringing it to perspective and to our knowledge. And my sister, Chinwe Ekwim, your insightfulness and analysis on Nigerian macroeconomic landscape and growth opportunities are well appreciated. Thank you. To our distinguished moderators, Mr. Bosin, thank you for, making it very much interactive. You stirred today's conversation with professionalism, balance, and insight. Your thoughtful moderation ensured a lively, engaging, and impactful session. Thank you. To our clients, partners, members of the media, and all our guests, I can see some of them, I don't want to start mentioning names. We sincerely appreciate your presence. Your contributions and your continued support of the Cowrie brand are well appreciated. Thank you. At Cowrie, we remain steadfast in our commitment to promoting thought leadership alongside our promise to create wealth and transform lives. Once again, thank you all for honoring our invitation and making today's event a resounding success. You can follow us on our social media handles. We are not difficult, so we make it to be very simple. Whether on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X, you can just use Cowrie Asset Management, but the management, one word, but the management there is just MGT. So Cowrie Asset MGT, so that is management, just one word. Or you can also visit our website at www.cowrieasset.com. We also look forward to welcoming you to the next edition of our quarterly economic discourse. Thank you very much, and do have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Please, thank you, everyone. Let's please remember there's a refreshment and networking. Ushers will indicate where that will be taking place. Thank you, everyone, for attending this quarterly briefing on the economy by Carry Asset Management. So I'll please invite the panelists to still stay there. The Managing Director, Carry Trustees, Ms. Egoli, to also join them on the podium for a group photograph. Thank you, everyone, including those who are online for this event. We thank you for your time, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. Okay, let's have that.